do you think about these things that I call core values, or is that something that's ever come up for you in what you do?
No, core values. Well, I used to be a CFO of like five of Bechtel's companies. I used to be a development director at Amherst, which is the second biggest restaurant company in the world, and a board member. And sometimes this core values is like a lot of gotta, pardon my language bullshit. I don't know if I can talk like this, but there is some things that are true for that. And like I can give you a small example at Adoria and then a big example in the industry as a whole. We make a premium quality wine. And so it's not going to be competing with the $2 Chuck or, the Boone's Farm or Annie Springsteen. We're up there like, $25 a bottle. So it's not super premium, but it ain't cheap. So when we make something, we're not cutting corners with like plastic corks or, a lot of preservative. We know we have a duty to provide a product that sells for $25 a bottle. So it's got to be good. And so we have a lot of focus on, for $25, you get a real cork, you get good quality wine. We're not dumping a ton of chemicals in there. And that's also helped us grow because we know that we are in that position. Our products can be sold like in 5-star hotels, 4-star hotels, nice restaurants, duty-free at airports. And we have to produce that. And so the quality standards have to be high. It's got to be like a Nordstrom standard, period. And if you don't like it, well, I can be flexible on a lot of things, but we're not going to be flexible on those standards because it'll kill us. And, when you put a product out in the arena, people have the right to say, oh, son of a bitch, man, I just paid $25 for this and it tastes like crap, And so you have to give a good product for, honest price point, an honest product for that. So that's what I'd say. That's really pushed us here. And especially in Poland, we were the first modern winery in the country 25 years ago. And so it was a weird animal that Poland up at this time was a fantastic vodka producer, has really good beers. But if they were other types of wine, basically specialized in, they're the best vodkas in the world. You look at like Chopin or Viborova, or you look at Belvedere. And so these are top marks. But they also produce a lot of cheap and sweet stuff. And so the play, like a lot of Polish stuff was with wine or with like these vermouths, which are very popular. They were cheap and sweet. And that's a different total game than what we're doing as a fine quality wine. And so it's a totally different mentality. So you have different standards. So so those have to be core values. You give, even the Polish, like they say, the cheap and sweet, so to speak, they still, they say they're going to give you this and they give you that. So it's kind of like Ryanair. Some people complain about Ryanair because they got cheap flights. They're trying to sell you lottery tickets. The food's not that good. It's kind of a cattle car. But what Ryanair says is we're going to get you from point A to point B on time, and they're 95% right. And they're going to give you a certain service or that. And so when you take them what they offered, on time, certain price, you can't judge them against Lufthansa or a lot Airlines or Singapore because they're not advertising they're giving you the Singapore experience. They're giving you this experience. And so we have to do the same thing. You get a premium wine, we're going to give you a premium product, and if there's a problem with it, we'll just, we'll trust it and we'll just get it and replace it. So.
Was that the mentality you started with 20 years ago? Because I can imagine, and I don't know much, actually, very little about the Polish wine industry. Was it a struggle 20 years ago, or was there something already there?
There was nothing there. I was talking to guys like, do you have a business plan? And I go, yeah, no, not really. I know what I'm doing as a business person, but can you tell me what I'm going to be able to sell a bottle of Polish premium wine for? Nobody knew what the hell that was. So I picked the value and it stuck, and then everybody followed after that. And then the thing that was like, we're in farming. We're farmers. We're outside of a city of Wrocław, like 1 million people, but we're farmers. And I had a lot of conversation where I tell people that, what? Nobody gives a shit about Zachowice quality. And you look at the time 20, 25, 30 years ago, they're run down farms. People look like shit, It's like nobody wants to buy that.
Mm.
So these are the standards. You have to do that. I don't, because I'll put up with, I can sometimes, I try to be nice to make people happy, but I know what the standard, I can't. So it's like, nobody's going to buy Zahovi's quality or, Polish countryside quality. They want a pine product that's going to be sold here. So these standards, you can't mess with. They have to be there because what you see is like, we got a good plant like Adoria. They're a French duty-free company. We're on the shelf, and next to us is Chopin or Smirnoff or Grey Goose or Guerlain or Chanel. It's in the same room. We have to be at that same level. And 25 years ago in the countryside in Poland, it wasn't the same level. Napa Valley was not. Now surprisingly, Zawica, there's 4 vineyards. Around me, there's 10. We kind of taught everybody how to do it. So it's getting there, but sure the hell wasn't Napa Valley then, and ain't now. So these are the standards you have to do because we can't compete on price because Chile will kill us or the cheap stuff out of France will kill us. So we got to compete on quality, and there's certain standards.
Well, you're obviously doing something right because I know recently, and I'm just reading something here from an article from Jancis Robinson. And if people don't know who Jancis Robinson is, you just Google her and you know. She is like a superstar in the wine world. And there was an article that came out about Poland wines that she was looking, and I'm going to read this sentence, and I'm sure this probably makes your head explode when you first saw it. She talks a lot about what's happening in Poland, and then she talks about the tasting. And this is a quote this is from her article. But the wine I really savored, Adoria Riesling 2021, was enjoyed when I returned to the place where the tasting had taken place. So from Jancis Robinson's lips or through her pen, that's pretty incredible, especially as you talked about the journey over the past 20 years. I'm sure that must have been something incredible when you first heard about that.
Oh, that was pretty cool, especially because look at this. I'm some schmuck that went to high school in Bellingham, Washington, and somebody was said, "Hey, but in 25 years from now, you're going to be the top winemaker in a medium-sized European country." It's like, no way in hell. So that was really cool. It makes you feel good because like you can pull something like that off. But I sure wasn't, laying in bed as a kid thinking, God, I'd just like to be the top winemaker in some European country.
Well, it speaks to what you were talking about earlier about the standards and then the core values that you're putting in place around quality and doing those things, which is pretty incredible. The other thing that I'm sure people, if they're listening to this, are screaming at for me to ask is, so I'm here in the States, and you are one of the top producers in Poland, and you have the most unique and interesting Polish accent.
Yeah, because I picked it up over here.
So maybe I'm very curious about sort of your journey because obviously I'm joking, of the Polish accent. So how did you end up in Poland?
It's pretty interesting. It's nothing special. I was about 25 years old, working in Seattle, going on 45 years old, and I kind of think I want to do something different, So I got a job as a lecturer at the Technical University in Wrocław, like in 1995. And then I ended up working in 15 different countries over here, like for Bechtel, Morris, and Knudsen. They're in the heavy construction industry. And then that was a cool job because somebody's paying for me to be in Paris or for me to be in Moscow or London. It was really neat. But once you have kids, you see your kid like once a month for 2 years. Like I got to change this, And especially like when I'm sitting in a board meeting for Bechtel in Croatia, we're building the Croatian motorway. Awesome pay, interesting work. And I'm in that board meeting, and there's me and every other, outside of me, every other man in that room was divorced. So, when you get to a certain level of American corporations, boy, you get a lot of, the work is fascinating. The people you work with are really great, but you're going to sacrifice your family for that. So I had to make a religious choice, but either be a father or keep in the corporate world. So I decided to be a dad.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, and that's why I'm talking to you right now. Because I got it's like, what the hell am I going to do?
It's interesting that you say that because I think a lot of people don't see that side. So I'll share Canada. When my son was young, maybe just a couple of years ago, I was doing something comparable. I was flying around the world doing all this, doing all the, acting like a big executive, but I really wasn't a big executive. I was just, doing a lot of world stuff. And I remember one Saturday morning, I walk out of the closet and my son, is sort of wobbling into the room, and he looks up at me and he goes, "Daddy, what are you doing home?"
Yeah.
And it's like your heart just gets ripped out, because it's like he realizes that I'm not home a lot. It's like, geez. So it's a struggle, and I think from a corporate perspective, people struggle with that. So thank you for sharing that.
Well, it's not easy being a man because, we're not supposed to cry. We're supposed to keep a stoic facade. We're supposed to bring home the money, and that's what we're judged on. And so when you got emotion, you want to be a dad, you got to make some hard decisions, and like I said, it was cool working for Bechtel and MK. It was really neat, but you got one shot at being a dad, so you better do a good job of it. There's enough people that are that one up royally that this is like in life. You have to make compromise. You got to think what's your value system, what's important to you. That being said, just at the same time that I was traveling through Siberia when it was Soviet Union, like 1996, with a friend of mine from New Hampshire. And then me and Dana had gone apart. And then like a year ago, he goes, "Hey, hey, my kid is going to start, his youngest son just started University of New Hampshire. My youngest daughter just started last fall, University of London." It's like, it's like in the Blues Brothers. We should get the band back together. And so to make a long story short, our kids are gone. And last month I was down in Turkish Kurdistan, right by the Syrian border, traveling again. It was pretty nice, So back to what I was doing, without the wife and, with the crappy hotels where they got the ashtrays in the middle of Iraqi cars parked in the parking lot and stuff like this. But hell of a lot of cool stuff,
That is cool stuff. The other thing that I loved about travel is that you really just get exposed to different cultures, different ways of thinking, just different lives. And I wish more people, at least on this side of the pond, took opportunities to do that, because it just gives you such a different perspective and appreciation. So, that's something that would be pretty wild if people would do. So what is the step from construction to putting wine in a bottle?
Well, let's say like 2001, you got a kid, you're in Poland, take a guy, I don't speak the language that well. I do now, but I got the accent. I sound like a Greek immigrant over here, basically. And so you got to think, what kind of, I got to make about, I'm 35 years old, let's start a business. And then I'm thinking, okay, what don't we have? Okay, well, we have like 38 million Europeans in Poland, but there's no wineries, and Europeans drink wine. Well, and at the time, that wasn't so true for Poles because, there's a vodka culture, a beer culture, but they're going towards Western Europe. It's totally different. It's a much richer country now. It's a cool place to be now. And so I thought, well, God, if I can get there on that ground floor, maybe do that. That's the risk. And the interesting thing was every single Polish person outside my wife thought I was nuts. Everybody in Napa Valley thought, dude, that's a good idea, man. And they were like, yeah. They even knew in Napa Valley, it's like, yeah, like a rental chest over in the middle, there's a whole swath right there. It's got this big calcium area, you make great things. Stuff those guys knew about Poland for wine was amazing. And they were like, do it. Here, Poland was like, you're out of your mind. But it's also the cool thing about being a foreigner is you see things other people don't. You have different cultures.
Yeah, I'm sure it is. And I imagine that people in Napa and even people in France are looking at this because, from what I understand, again, I'm no wine expert yet, although I'm trying to figure out some stuff. Because of like climate change, places like Poland are getting more popular because the grapes can actually there's better ripening and there's better opportunity, and it's probably from an economic perspective a little more feasible because, like you said, it's almost like it's like a startup area. Am I misreading that, or is there something to that?
Well, there's two things. One is climate's pretty nice here right now, but also when I did the research 25 years ago, it was nice in 1972. The thing was that the part of Poland I'm in used to be Germany. And you start your war, you lose a big chunk of your country. Sorry, don't start wars. So anyway, this was a good climate for that. And then it was actually kind of more expensive in France or the United States would be because there was no infrastructure. So so Robert Mondavi started his wine in Napa, winery Napa Valley. First year he bought grapes from his brothers. He pressed it at his brother's place. He did everything. He just basically did marketing. Here, you had to buy the field, you had to plant for 4 years, you had to build the building because there was zero infrastructure. So Polish, like if you look at like say Eastern Europe as a wine player, Chile or something like this, like Romania, Chile, France, they're actually cheap. They can produce cheaper wine because all the infrastructure is there, the fields are there. I mean, Jesus, you can buy bulk wine in Italy right now for like, let's see, 65 cents a liter, US cents.
Wow.
And so that's where you're going to get the cheap stuff because everything's there. The grapes are there. Here it was like you had to do every single thing from scratch. It's getting better now, but that's why it's plant the field, wait 4 years, and that's like year number 7 of our business. We got audited by the tax department's like, okay, what's the game you're playing, dude? Because you've been here for 7 years, you got all these costs, you ain't got no profit, and what the hell are you doing?
Yeah.
And so they said like for 7 weeks between my accountant's office and my winery or my office, 3 times a day, they would go like every single day, what's this for? What's this for? We'll explain it to them like, well, why did you get like these 70 pieces of cement? Well, because that goes between the flower bed and the road. You got to show them that. So they never saw some kind of stupid business as a winery where you just have to plant, wait 3 years, 4th year harvest. Red wine take a year and a half. So, you start selling at year number 6 and 7. So that was quite interesting for them. And, that made it more expensive.
Wow. Yeah, I can imagine there's a tremendous amount of startup costs that hopefully you're going to be able to start recuperating. I mean, there's a certain point, it's probably with the expansion and explosion you're talking about. I think in the Genesis article, she said something like 600 or 700 wineries are starting to pop up now. So, you hit it right on the head, getting in early.
Well, it's like, some guy, what was it, like Rebecca McIntyre or something like this. She says, man, somebody says, you're so lucky. She goes, yeah, you didn't see the 18 years in the bars and sleeping in the station wagon. That was before that. But now it's kind of cool. And even the last 2 months, my sales have shot up because of, when Janice Robinson speaks, people listen. So she's probably been worth like 40% increased sales the last 2 months.
Wow, that's incredible.
It's nice. It's not always this easy, but this last couple of months are pretty cool.
Now, with the growth and what you're experiencing, you talked about sort of your sort of core of quality and things of that nature. Do you feel that the business itself is feeling that or understands that sentiment of quality and what's going on? Like how do you instill your values into what the organization or what the winery is?
Okay, I can easily, I guess not maybe the right word, but I can control my winery, my business, and and my employees. My wife's not so much. But so that's easy. But what's interesting about the wine business as a whole on a macro level is you ever get a chance to go to Dusseldorf? There's an event called Pro Wine. It's the biggest wine trade show in the world. And there's also like Wine Paris. But you go there in Dusseldorf, and they have these huge trade things, these huge halls. And like for Pro Wine, it's 12 halls. In the hall, you can basically play 2 American football games per building. And so you got 11 halls that are full of wine, and you got 1 of spirits. And to get in the door, you got to prove that you are in the wine business. Show a business card or company registration, they won't let you in. So you get in the door, and there's a huge amount of wines. But the most interesting thing is when you walk in those 11 things with wine, and then you walk into the spirits hall. So the wines, you're going to see basically people that, either like me with gray hairs, a little bit of a belly, but you dress nice, or you see all these elegant Europeans dressed nice, understated clothes, very elegant. They're in blacks and browns and, elegant people. And then you walk into the vodka and the Captain Morgan rum area, the average age drops from like maybe 50 down to 27. The mini skirts get jacked up. You go from browns and subtle tones to chrome and pink and
And
purple
bright, so yeah, bright colors.
and bright stuff. Because the difference between the wine business and the spirits business, the big difference is spirits producers at a big level. So you have like 200, 300, 500 people in a facility. There'll be like everybody's going to specialize: accounts payables, accounts receivable. There'll be the drinks master, whatever the master distiller is. There'll be truck drivers. There'll be forklift drivers. There'll be guys working the bottling line. When you go to a winery, you might have 2, 3, 7, 10 people max. And so this is what was really also cool about the Janice Robinson thing is not only did I'm the owner of the business, but I'm the guy that actually made the wine. And when the toilets get plugged up, guess who's going to unfix the toilet? And when we had to load a couple of pellets on wine, we shipped one bottle of wine to Denmark a day, one to the Warsaw Airport. Guess who was on the forklift? Me also. And guess who was on the podcast? So what you get in the wine business is you got to wear a lot of hats, like farmer, food producer, technology. You got to deal with the legal compliances. Then you got to, if you're lucky, you lose some weight, go, cut a suit on, look like George Clooney. So you have to do a whole lot of things, and it's kind of, then you got to do end of month accounting. Whereas in the bigger corporations, you're specialized. So you see that first of all. You can walk in the rooms and instantly say, okay, that's a mass-produced product. These guys are all small wineries. And then if you drive around, easy thing is like you go into Napa Valley, and you see you're in Rutherford, or if you're in the Central Valley of California, and you're say Modesto, totally different animal-looking cities.
Yeah.
I've been in Germany. You can see the wine areas. A town in the wine areas, and then you go just like a half a mile out. The buildings are more drab. There's more gray colors, not taken care of as much. So it's a really it brings. You have to be quite smart because you got to do a lot of different things, and you got to do it on a quality level. So you see it in the village, like this, like in Germany, this place called by Dresden. North of there, you see like Radibull town is really, really beautiful. Quarter mile away, the guys doing wheat and pigs, it just don't look as nice. And you can visually see that. And the same thing with, the people, the way they dress up in Provine. So it's definitely, standards are different.
Yeah, that's pretty wild. So from your area, so you're more southwest Poland, I would say.
Southwest. We're like 2 hours from Dresden, 2 hours to Berlin, or 3 hours to Berlin, 3 hours to Prague. Yeah.
And there's Częstochowa is west of you, right?
At the east of us, 2 hours.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, east. Yeah, it's funny here. So I'm in Jersey, and not too far away from us, there's a large. There's a pretty, there's a pretty big Polish population, but there is a church, the Lady of Częstochowa, in Pennsylvania,
Okay.
and my father is buried there, and we it's a huge Polish population. So when I saw Częstochowa, I'm like, oh, that's pretty wild. So it's pretty cool. The biggest varietals. So I see you've got a bunch, but is Riesling pretty popular there because of the climate?
Yeah, you got to remember too, like Poles do a shitty job of advertising their country. You talk to a Polish person, you swear to God you're in damn Siberia. When I went over there, my boss bought me an Arctic survival vest. But guess what? I'm next to Germany, and they grow Riesling there. So I don't know where the disconnect is. But it's like we're in the, there's all the. If you ever look at like a pack of seeds in the United States, they got on the back. There's always a map. So like here in California, you can plant this in July. If you're in Minnesota, you plant it in California. You're planting in January. Minnesota, you're planting in July. And so they got the same over Europe. So we're in like we're in climate zone number 7, which starts basically in Wrocław on the east where we're at, and it ends in Champagne on the west.
Oh,
And
wow.
all of Burgundy, Bordeaux, Alsace, Rheingau, Rheinhessen, Moselle, every good wine region north of the Alps is in zone number 7 where we're at. So we grow the same exact stuff.
Wow, that's all. It's funny because I actually had as part of the stuff I'm doing here in the States, we had in the Finger Lakes, I had this guy Peter Weiss on, and Peter is German and he's from the Mosel region.
Okay,
So
okay.
he's originally from there, and he's got several generations of winemaking. And he came to the States. He did a little stint in California, and then he went to the Finger Lakes. In the Finger Lakes, he's like, this reminds me of Mosul. So
Yeah.
from a climate perspective and everything else, and the Finger Lakes is known for its Riesling. So that's why I asked.
Well, over here, it's like my Uncle Willie, he's retired now, but he went to Oregon. He was a research scientist at Oregon State University in the Willamette Valley. This is the Willamette Valley over here, Chardonnay, Pinot Noir, and sandy soils. We got, it's this, it's the same exact thing. It's a little more colder in the winter, like Eastern Washington. Maybe not as cold as Eastern Washington, but it's just like the Willamette Valley with an Eastern Oregon winter. That's it.
That's cool. So, like, what do you see for yourself? I'm sure that the Jancis article has, thrown a curveball, a good one. So, how do you see what's happening, or what the outlook would be for maybe the next 9 months or a year for Adoria?
I don't see a big difference in 9 months or a year. We just got to keep focusing on keep the quality standards high. Maybe something we can be proud of, and if we do that, the success will come. Reputation gets out. You pick up new clients slowly. There ain't going to be this ain't like Google or Microsoft or some kind of tech company. It's a winery. It's been around for 7,000 years. But if you build it up, you slowly, you get rewarded if you do a good job.
Yeah, I was trying to find some of it here on the States, and I think I found a couple places, so I have to go out and grab some because I'm super curious to try it, and I'd love to be able even to go over there one of these days and maybe connect and do that. That'd be great.
Yeah. And the thing is, it's honestly, it's going to taste just like, Burgundy, Pinot Noir, Chardonnay. It's not, but there's not a huge difference. But God, if you're, it's still a cool product to be able to pull off. It's nice to be able to make something that people are happy about, it. They can feel good about. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, no kidding. If I was to ask you, like maybe if you can define or think about your region, your little wine region, what would be 3 words and 3 words only that you would use to describe your area? I know it's a good one, right, Mike?
Yeah, because the tough thing is like, I would probably say dynamic. Because coming here in 90 when it was like poor and hell white Africa, and now it's just booming. It's a great place to live. I mean, everybody's getting rich, doing well. So dynamic, modern, lots to learn.
That's cool.
It's funny. The cool thing about Poland is, or Czech Republic, is that like after the communism fell, Eastern Germany, at the beginning they had it better, but not now. Is that they were basically East Germany is rescued by West Germany. And what that meant is they changed the mark one for one, the German mark, Ostmark to the German mark. West German government came in, guaranteed all the pensions, paid everybody a high pension level. Audi, Siemens started building factories there. So everybody had jobs. Compared to Poland and Czech Republic, it's like, congratulations, you got your freedom. Don't let the door kick you and hit you in the ass as you leave. And you're free. Good luck. And so what happened is over here at the beginning it was quite messy when everybody's trying to figure out what the hell to do. But now you got really strong entrepreneurs, guys that have built companies and they know how to make a good product and they got a lot of clients and they got that huge base entrepreneurs, kind of like maybe around San Francisco or Seattle. Whereas you go back to East Germany, man, ain't nothing happening there. I got a friend from Bellingham, he married a girl just from, his wife was, she's from East Berlin. And I go to Lugesfeld, the last 15 years, the only thing that's changed is they got a new radar trap. That's it. They don't got no new stores, no new nothing, just a new radar trap. Where here things are dynamic. I mean, things are building hugely. And you go back to Eastern Germany right now, and it's just, it's stagnant. When you look at the things like the average age of the German works like 47 or 57 years old, you go to stores, you see it, West Germany, East Germany, it's really there. Well, here it's a hell of a lot more dynamic because, They got this huge entrepreneurial class that's been had to figure everything out in 30 years. So that's why I say it's dynamic over here.
That's pretty cool. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, I almost feel like there's an innovative aspect too, right? So that entrepreneurial spirit, I'm sure you know from what you've done, can be quite powerful, and it could change a lot of things.
Oh, it's incredibly powerful because, like, I spent a bunch of time in East Germany, and like last year I went to Cottonbush to go to this wine festival. I thought, well, give it a try. It sucked. It was so incredibly backwards, And ladies, so you got to come here during the flower festival. It's like, no, woman, you just got to get your butt to Wrocław because, it's just so much more dynamic and it's just stagnant there. They don't have the entrepreneurials they got over here in Poland and Czech Republic. It's just. But they didn't have the chance to build it, or they, sometimes it's better just to get kicked in the butt and like figure it out yourself, pal.
Yeah, yeah, it's totally a mindset. And
Yeah.
what's interesting, if you don't mind the observation, it's almost like your entrepreneurial vision and what you've done. Coming to Poland, it almost seems it's the right time. Maybe it didn't feel like that initially, but it's almost like, hindsight, it's like, this is pretty decent timing.
Well, no, as a young man, it was cool because it was like, if you grew up watching the James Bond movies and Indiana Jones, that was like it was like in the 90s, man. But with hot chicks, man, elegant, beautiful women. So there's a lot of American men my age right now that just had man, it was great because you got over here, everything was poor as hell, it was funky as hell, like at a James Bond movie. But then you look around, it's like, man, 30% of the women here are drop dead gorgeous. And these Slavic women, they really dress elegant. So you're looking at everything that looks like Greta Garbo in the 1950s. So it's been an incredibly cool time. And I'm happy as hell. It's a neat place to be. It's just neat to see the growth, that happen, the positive things. But it was an incredibly cool time to be here, like banging around when the Iron Curtain was still out.
Yeah, no kidding. So I'm curious with all the things that you've done and building that business there. I'm kind of curious, like, what are some of your heroes that you've had, whether it's growing up or now, or who would they be?
I read a lot of biographies when I was a kid. Let's say Winston Churchill, or I've also been lucky to have a lot of good mentors, like Morris Gunston was the Lutron led. Back then it was John Nowes and George Alsop at Coast Crane in Seattle, Dan Goodall, and I was really blessed to have guys like that. Like I remember, I was working, I got out of university, and I was working for Coast Crane down by the Kingdom in Seattle, and the owner was Dennis McLeod, and it was like I'm from this really liberal university to Dennis was John Wayne basically, and he goes one time he goes, like you do this and this, and I said, well, you got a book I can read it from? And Dennis gives me a look like, you get your ass out that door and you don't come back until you figure it out. So I walked out the door. It was me in Seattle for 3 days. I figured it out, And so I've been blessed to have guys like that in my life, that have taken an interest in me and mentored me. And I think that's very important. I try to pass on the love too, because that's incredibly important. But, also you look at guys like Abraham Lincoln, you read his autobiography, it's like, my God, this guy's the closest guy to Jesus Christ, like from the Bible. If you read the Bible, I can see why people, when I was in high school, why they taught so much about the guy. Was amazing. You look at Marcus Aurelius and the Stoic philosophy, great things to learn from, So a young man or a young woman, you need those mentors around you. You need those examples to show you how to live better. Because, geez, if I tried to figure it out myself, I'd screw it up,
It's amazing when you look at some of that ancient sort of philosophy. I got a couple of editions or translations of Meditations, and it's shocking how, some of the things that they talk about, even Seneca back then, it's so applicable, today. So I think that's a missed opportunity. I thank you for bringing that up. I think it's a missed opportunity that people don't, pick that up and learn a little bit of it. It's not like you got to study and do a PhD in it, but, pick it up here and there. And there's some crazy, amazing insights. Wow.
Like you're reading the Old Testament. This book is written 3,000 years ago, and it's 100% applicable today, and I highly recommend you read Ecclesiastes, because that's like the adult book of the Bible. Like when I grew up in my church, and you're going to hell, you're a sinner, and woe is you. But then you start releasing, like Ecclesiastes says, better to be a live dog than a dead lion. And you go through, that's I'm definitely not the most religious person in the world, but you look at all this stuff and it's like, this is applicable today as it was 3,000 years ago.
Yeah, there's a reason why some of these things survive. There's a common thread, I think, that filters through all of us, and that's pretty interesting. If there was like one or two key takeaways that you want somebody listening to this to have from our discussion, what would be one or two things that you want somebody to leave after they listen to this?
If you're starting your own company, it's definitely good to be a little stupid and underestimate the obstacles and just, be able to grit is an important thing. Be able to bang your head against the wall and just work at something for a long time. That's important. I think that's a key skill to have. Also, the thing that I see is we're not supposed to make mistakes. Well, if you don't make mistakes, you're not learning. And so that's how you learn, is by screwing up. So you kind of want to screw up fast, but it also allows you, I think the most successful people I see are the people they're always learning, they're humble. They know that they're to learn, and they're smarter than anybody in the room. But they realize that I'm going to make mistakes. I have to make mistakes, but I also want to learn. So that humility is incredibly freeing. It's like freedom, because if you hold yourself out to be perfect, that's an impossible standard. And so if you realize, I'm going to go in at the first, I'm going to suck at this, and I'm going to get a little better, a little bit better, a little better, that just frees yourself up. Because when you start anything, if you're like playing a guitar or making wine, at the beginning, you're going to suck. And you got to fail, and learn from your failure, and then be able to seek out, wisdom, or seek out help. At the beginning, I wasn't really good at that, but then once I realized, shit, man, I just got to ask somebody. My life becomes a lot easier. So I would say those two things is grit, and then be humble and realize you're a human being and you're going to make mistakes because you're normal. Because I think that's what the normal state is. And then make your mistakes and go forward.
Yeah, no, that's actually incredible advice, and I'm going to make sure my kids listen to that piece, because I try to articulate that too, and that's such sage wisdom. And not only I don't think that it's not something you're just saying. I mean, you've proved this over 20 years, starting, in Poland, and now you have one of the top wine people in the world, talking about your wine. So there's proof in those statements. So I appreciate you saying that.
Well, we had my mother like 8 years ago said, you should do an Easter egg hunt. I was like, Mom, that's a stupid idea. That was that's my default. No, I learned to change that. But anyway, so we have this Easter egg hunt. Now this time we have like 600 kids show up for Easter egg.
Wow,
that's a lot of dang kids. And so we also have like cotton candy, because we know kids like cotton candy. We can make cotton candy for just 2 hours a year. That's it. And so this girl comes by and she's helping us, because we need a lot of help, because we don't, have staff for 600 people every day. So at the beginning, where she's trying to make cotton candy and she's failing at it, and she all of a sudden she gets almost has a panic attack. And I asked her, I go, what are your grades like in school? Are you getting like straight A's? And she goes, yeah. I go, that's your problem. You never made cotton candy before. You're going to fuck it up. And I actually, said the stronger word in Polish here. And, but that's normal. You have to understand, your first time you're going to suck at it. Second time you're going to suck. You're going to learn. And what was really cool about this little girl was, not girl, she's like 15 years old. She took that message really quick. And within an hour and a half, she was making cotton candy, just like, nonstop cotton candy, because she took the message. And I'm surprised, because I don't think I'd be that fast on this, but you got to be able to make mistakes. You're going to make mistakes. Just accept it as normal. You can't grow without them. And then just get through it. And she did. And then she was like, boom, 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 boom. And she was quite successful. So it's really important to give yourself the freedom to realize, I'm a human being. I'm going to make mistakes. I'm not going to be Taylor Swift or Einstein on the first day. I'm going to suck at it,
Yeah. No, that's perfect. That's perfect. Listen, I can't thank you enough for doing this. I hope this is the start of maybe several conversations And if I get the chance to jump over the pond, I'm going to be going to Croatia in the fall. Yeah, my daughter's going to go to RIT in Croatia, so maybe we'll try to figure something out. But this has really been incredible. I'm definitely going to see if I can find some of the wines on the East Coast. I want to try some of the sparkling. I want to get some of that Riesling. I want to get some of your reds. I'm really looking forward to that. And hopefully we can, like I said, talk further and sort of bridge the pond, as they say.
Okay, well, thanks for having me on the show. I appreciate it.
You got it.
Good.